Boxing's made a big comeback. Big part of that is Jake Paul. So now you're having more interesting battles happen in boxing because they're realizing if we don't do this, then we're done. We can argue amongst my promotion, your promotion, and keep our fighters away from each other. But then at the end of the day, we all lose.
Rashad! What's up, fight fans? What's up, combat sports community? It is your boy, your brother in arms, Isaac Ike Feldman. I'm being joined by one of the pioneers of the 2000s generation, the superstar generation, in my opinion, Suga, Rashad Evans. Mr. Evans, I have to call you Mr. Evans out of pure respect, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm blessed, man. How about you, Ike?
I believe I'm blessed too, man. Each and every day, living that
Absolutely.
life, trying to keep things in balance.
Yes, indeed.
What's a before we get to the nitty gritty X's and O's, give us some tips because you are a master Miyagi when it comes to this mixed mental art side of life. What can you give us, average Joe, some tips to or routines to lead on to be a consistent samurai in the garden?
You know, one of the biggest things about being a samurai in the garden or being a samurai anywhere, but the garden's a good analogy because in the garden, you know, you have to pick the weeds. Picking the weeds is one of the most important things in the garden. You got to make sure that the weeds don't suffocate and take the nutrients from the plants that you want to highlight, right? So, um, minding your garden, pulling out the weeds is a great analogy for what you have to do for your mind. And just like a good gardener, you have to be very diligent, you have to be very patient, and you have to be very steadfast in the way you're looking. The awareness of the garden itself, the awareness of what's happening in the garden, what the garden's telling you about the nature that's growing around it. And when you're able to really plug into all of that and you're able to really start to look and find those different elements that you see in the garden that's causing the problems, you start to pull it out. So in your efforts to improve your life, don't forget to mind your mental gardening by just being aware. You know, a lot of people feel like when they meditate or when they go into that space where they gotta come out and have to be a certain kind of way and push these thoughts to the side in order to get into the perfect state of meditation. But truly, the best meditation is just being aware and not interrupting, but being the awareness that you are, because what we truly are is the awareness that interprets everything around us. And, you know, through just not understanding what we are, we don't sit in a witness seat of awareness and we overwhelm ourselves with the doing aspect of life instead of just being the awareness aspect of life.
True. And folks, I promise you, this is not scripted. I did not set up that samurai garden. Rashad is just a beautiful poet, and he don't even know it. But that was like a beautiful setup, man. I swear that people are gonna think that was scripted. So the next question on our script that we have here, man, I love focusing on the mental side of it. And people, I literally just heard your quote at a week ago, and I didn't want to be like, yeah, I'm about to talk to him actually. Somebody said, did you know fighting is 90% mental and 10% physical on fight week? I was like, oh, never heard that before. I actually heard it
Yeah.
from who I have the pleasure of speaking with, Mr. Rashad Evans, host of the Sugar Snake Takes podcast. Check that out. Obviously, we know he's former UFC light heavyweight champion, ESPN analyst, and entrepreneur for his company, Umbo. But focusing on the mental side of things, there was a lot of verbal attacks back and forth prior to UFC 297. Go back a month to UFC 296, the fight in the stands. You guys know who I'm talking about. Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. The S is silent. Talk me in my opinion, the I didn't pay attention to the betting lines, but it would have
Yeah.
changed after I saw that fight in the stands. I thought that Sean did such a good job of keeping, I feel like it's low-hanging fruit, but to say the words demon tape down and keeping it away, I felt like Drekis stirred on that and it came back
Yeah.
up. And I felt like Sean was fighting more than his opponent during this past 6 weeks during the fight week and in the fight. Obviously, he's excellent on the feet, great jab, great stand up, but I feel like he was a little exhausted before he stepped in the cage. What, from your championship level perspective, did you see from Sean Strickland in the lead up to that fight?
Well, I think you hit it right on the head, and then I feel like you hit the turning point of it all too right on the head, because I felt like the turning point of it all was him visibly being upset behind what Dricus was saying to him. You know, when you have to fight somebody, the fight is fought on many different facets. Some people used to always get on me because of the way I used to talk trash, or the way I would try to get underneath my opponent's skin, and they would think I had bad sportsmanship. But in reality, it wasn't that at all. It's that when I had to fight you, the fight started the minute that we both understood and we both consented to the fight. You agreed to fight me. So anything I can do to you to mentally disturb that balance of you getting on the cage and you thinking clearly, you executing your technique clearly, anything that has to do with you doing good against fighting against me, I want to prohibit that. So if I can say something to you to stir you, to get you to become a little bit unhinged, I'll do that. And when Dricus was able to do that to Sean Strickland moved into a different role where he wasn't playing, typically speaking, leading up and going to all these fights. Because if you remember, Strickland has always been a thorn in the weight class as far as like being a shit starter. He was a thorn in the weight class when he started to, go at Izzy. And because, he went and he took on Izzy with the whole bag of tricks and the whole insulting tactics, and it worked. He kind of reigned supreme as far as like him being the guy who could stir people, with what he says, to the point where he even turned that shit starting mentality against Ian Gary. Not saying right. Ian Gary didn't notice, but I mean didn't deserve it, or I don't know, But the thing about it is that he got so tired of picking on people in his own weight class, he started to go after Ian Gary. Now, that when he started to do that and he started to really get himself all into those kind of arguments, he's showing that that's what he does. So when it got done back to him and he started to react like that, that was the first sign that things may not go his way on fight night. And also, he comes from this background, and one is one of abuse, in a sense where there's some kind of abuse, maybe physically, maybe even emotionally speaking, and who knows what else, but there's that abuse there. And when you have that system of abuse, there's certain characters that play different roles. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you can run across a person in life that reminds you of somebody who played a certain role in the abuse that you had growing up. So maybe Dricus displayed like one of the kids who went to a skid, who was to a school who had, and when Strickland did have one of the rich kids and always tease him. Who knows what the case may be, but it brought out a different side of Sean Strickland, one that put him in a role of emotion, which we never really see him in.
Again, this is Ike Feldman with Give Me Sport, of course, being joined by former UFC champion Rashad Suga. Oh, excuse me, Sugar Rashad Evans. Is anybody gonna give homage to Rashad here? We see Mr. Sean O'Malley getting the play on the sugar word, but hello, people. Did we forget? Is it recency bias, or is that just show you how young the fan base is? But that's neither here nor there.
It's a young fan base.
What is here is this amazing interview. Again, I appreciate the time. Everything you say is beautifully said, not scripted. You have faced some brilliant trash talkers in your day, and I'll even throw Jon Jones in there. I don't think he gets enough credit. He's pretty good. He's above average, but the elite of the elites, bro, you faced and beat Tito Ortiz. You faced and beat Quentin Rampage Jackson. With those guys, and I'm doing going back and watching the Shamrock trilogy with Tito. Man, they were ruthless. How in your mind did you dismantle these trash talkers before the fight, or was it like you punch them and you go, oh, they bleed just like me, they're human just like me? Take me through the scenario.
After my first fight with Tito Ortiz, that was the first time that I've ever really encountered that level of trash talking before a fight. It was always respectful up until then. And when I had to fight Tito Ortiz the first time for UFC 73, um, I went out to George St. Pierre's fight, and I'm in the audience in Houston, and I'm with my wife, and this dude comes up to me, Tito Ortiz comes up to me, and he bumps me, and he gets to my face, and at that to that point, I've always been like, I've always followed the code of Bushido. Like, I mean, I would talk trash here and there, but for the most part, I knew the sport was a respectful one in that, and when he came up to me, it was just some very street shit. So I'm just like, oh, okay, this is how we want to play it. So at that moment, I knew the value in doing that because I knew where the space that put me in. Like when he did that to me, it completely changed my mind from the kind of fight that I thought it was to the fight that ended up developing to being. So for me, I was like, I wanted to give people that feeling. I wanted to make people realize that when they had to fight me, they were either going to think about it for the next 8 weeks and it was going to haunt them. I was going to weigh on them some kind of way. And I was going to take up some mind in their space. As my uncle Junebug calls it, I wanted to take up renting their head. I wanted to rent some space. So anything I could do to rent space, that's what I would do. And what I started to realize is that there was an art form to it. It's not all about, like, people think that it's just about running your mouth, being reckless, because there's a balance to it. There's a science to it. There's a way of saying it where it's funny and it's a good banter and it hits the mark where it's tasteful enough where it really starts to bother him and he feels he needs to answer. But then there's a point where you can go too far and it can put you in the position where you're having to defend what you say. And then now it's taking energy away from you. So the key with the trash talking is to be able to play hot potato with the words, but not get caught with the potato, right? So I want to throw it at you and I want to stay detached enough where I'm not going to get caught up with anything you say back. So I kind of harden my mindset for the things you may say to me, and I teach myself to not react. So when you say it, I'm coming at you with divorce emotion, but I'm making you think that I'm fully engaged. So I want to get that vitriol, I want to get that anger from you, and that way I'm more on your mind than you are on mine. And that's when the dynamics start to change. That's when you bring it in fight night, really fighting with emotion. And for me, I'm calm, cool, collected, and paying attention to the math that I studied in training camp.
Very calm, cool, and collected, man. You
Yeah.
just everything you do, it seems like you carry you can't fake it. It's like you've been doing it so long that it's like this is who you are. Like I feel like people who try to be quote unquote cool or be swaggadocious, just made that up, folks. Don't use that word.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a method to it. There's a method to it, and behind anything you do, if you're just aimlessly doing it, then you're about to reach a point where it's not working anymore. The effectiveness of anything is understanding the why behind it, understanding what is the method, what are you trying to achieve by doing what you want to do. By just having senseless actions, yeah, you may have some success with it, but you may not truly understand the level of success you can have with it if you understood it enough to use it as a weapon.
And I have a question. If you do not understand the why, but yet you continue down that path, do you eventually find the answer?
You will find the answer, but you may find yourself on the other end of the why, as far as like learning a lesson and why the why is important, right? Find yourself on a losing effort. That's one thing that can happen. You can find yourself on the losing end of an effort because you didn't truly understand the why. You may have got yourself too caught up in a trash talking situation where you got yourself so emotionally involved on fight night. You go into the cage and your heart feels like 1,000 pounds, and you're a little bit more nervous, and you're fighting yourself as well as your opponent. That's a situation where we're not being measured and not being able to understand the why can get you in trouble.
What would you like to see from Sean Strickland moving forward?
With Sean Strickland, I feel like he just needs to to get back into himself, and by that I mean this: we love Sean Strickland. We love him for being the outspoken person that he is, right? And he does have a way of saying things that a lot of us want to say, but here's what I would say to him. Don't just become a soundbite. Don't become a soundbite to the point where it's all about you saying the shocking things. Then your fighting becomes something on the outside of that. You know, you were able to get the attention to say what you need to say because your shock, his fighting stood out above anything. And then it's like, wow, he
Right.
got some interesting things to say. But when you say so many things you know, a lot of things he says are true. Some things he says I agree with totally. But here's the thing about it: everybody's not on that page. It's
Right.
very divisive at times. And when you're playing a sport where you're judged by people, you don't know what the people who are judging you, where their loyalties lie. Do they have somebody in their family who's gay? Are they gay themselves? You know what I'm saying? Like, do they fall into any of those categories which you're strongly opinionated about? Because you judge them in a public setting on stage when you got asked a question, and now they secretly judge you as they mark down scores for your rounds, whether you won the round or not. So I'm not saying don't, and that can go for anybody, right? Anybody can say anything where a judge who may judge the fight can judge it. But what I'm saying, when you put yourself in that position time and time again, you're more likely to rub some feathers. And when you're in a position being judged by people, you might want to spread it out a little bit.
This may sound a little weird, but I feel like if you set yourself up to be judged and criticized, my wife is European and they're very superstitious. Like, Rashad, don't leave your pants on the floor. That would mean somebody will walk over you.
Yeah,
What was it? If you have an itchy nose, you're gonna get into a fight, so you have to pat your butt. But also, one of their superstitions is that if you have something that's near and dear to you, like a child or like big news, you want to keep that to your heart because you don't want people's evil eye to see it. And
yeah,
in my opinion, with Colby saying what he said, Sean saying what he said, Connor what he did against Khabib, you all of a sudden just make this energy just start to like resurrect that maybe wasn't there before. And it's like,
wasn't there.
the fifth round, it's like I watched it. I'm like, yeah, I think DDP had the takedown, more power shots,
Yeah,
optics were there, but it's like I feel like Sean was fighting a force that he couldn't see in there, and it's like it just
yeah.
happens. I'm almost happy that now he can kind of reset and kind of go back and just kind of disappear for a bit. I'm sure he's feeling it. In your opinion, I believe it was a good thing for the sport that Conor McGregor didn't win against Khabib because he's already motivated and intrigued a whole generation of fighter. But if Conor, after coming out, attacking Khabib's father,
Yeah,
kind of religion with the alcohol drink, I think that kind of would have opened a door that like wouldn't be closed. Um, you're from you fought these Bushido code fighters. Do you think we're getting back to that? I love seeing the Alex Pereira, the Yuri Pahaskas, like the fighters that their fight sells themselves.
yeah.
Or is the UFC going to lean into the trash talk?
They always lean into what makes money, and truly, what makes money is what, you know, the top guys set what makes money. You know, when you have top guys in the weight class that go out there and handle business, that are no nonsense, that don't need to say a lot. The guys like Alex Pereira, the guys like, you know, now Dricus Duplessis. You know what I'm saying? Guys like that has the ability to go out there and let their work for them show. The guys like Islam Makhachev and Alex Volkanovski, these great champions, they really say something in the fact that you don't need to say anything. Let your fight and speak for yourself. And here's the thing about it. I don't feel like it needs to be one way because that makes it boring, right? We want to keep it as uniform as the people who continue to fight, right? Because that's why we love MMA. From around the world, we got all these different people from all these different walks of life, and it just enriches us culturally speaking because there's so much difference, and there's so many things that are similar, and every group of people that comes from all these different places. But the thing about it is that there are going to be some people who are more braggadocious, who got that flashy side, and there's going to be people who's got that stoic side, that the strong silent types, the one that are like, that still waters run deep, and you better be careful, you better pack a lunch. So everything is welcome, but what gets people is not the occasional trash talker, because there's been trash talkers since the beginning of time, since the in-a-fight game, from your Jack Johnsons back in the day to Sugar Ray Robinsons and
Yes.
the Muhammad Ali's and all these guys. There's always going to be the brash characters, but it's when it's not authentic that bothers people. The thing that separates Colby Covington and Conor McGregor is the fact that there's an authenticity with Conor that is just it's just so alluring. You know what I'm saying? It's just so alluring, and the thing about it is he's probably just selling us. He's probably just doing a shtick. But the way he comes to life when he says it, and how he says it, he's like a character off of a movie. It's just hell yeah, you know what I'm saying? But the way when Kobe says it, you just like, you listen to it, but you listen to it for a different reason. It's just like, man, you know what I'm saying? Some of the shit he says is kind of funny and it's kind of corny, but I want to see what happens. I want to see if he really can do what he says. So it's from a different appeal side, but the authenticity of it is a lot different, and people can tell. And I feel like that's what people get tired of, just that fakeness.
Man, I was smiling ear to ear. I had the opportunity to talk with Leon right before his fight with Colby. He says, who he reminds me of? I was like, who? He's like Stifler from American Pie. I was like, oh my God. I was like, that is spot on. He's like, hello, nerds
Yeah,
and virgins. I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
150%.
Yeah, he's very reminiscent of like an '80s bully, or like somebody's like bully uncle, or somebody's bully. Like, he's very reminiscent of it, and that's what's so funny about it, because he has like this his persona is it's very in line with a TV personality. I honestly, I like Kobe. Kobe's one of those guys for me that he says some things that are definitely cringeworthy, but there's another side to Kobe that I like, from an athletic point of view, for sure. But even as a, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. He's not a bad person.
True. I couldn't agree more. Same thing with Henry Cejudo.
Yeah,
And I think Henry's getting his due with the analytical work. It's really beautiful
yeah,
stuff.
he's doing good with that.
And what is really beautiful stuff is Rashad Evans, former UFC light heavyweight champion, on the ESPN desk for UFC fight nights and pay-per-views, doing amazing work. Shout outs to the talent recruiter at Disney, ESPN, UFC to get Rashad on the desk. I don't know if he has naked photos of Dana White, and that's how he got the job. No, but Rashad, it's like I love it because it's like you are the warrior in the garden, and it's like you bring that energy to the desk, and it's like everybody just looks at you and listens to every single beat, every single word that comes out of your mouth. It is beautiful stuff. And if you guys want to hear more of Rashad, he does a podcast with Jake Plummer, Jake the Snake, number 16. When I
Yeah,
was
Jake the
betting
Snakes.
as a dumb teenager, Jake won me some money for the Broncos years ago. I don't know what the heck I was thinking. But Jake is the man, Rashad's the man. They have a podcast called Suga Snake Takes, and also Mr. Evans owns a company for functioning mushrooms called Umbo. Mr. Evans, could you tell us about this company, please?
Yeah, you can go to getumble.com. It's a functional mushroom company, which is lion's mane, turkey tail, reishi, cordyceps, that kind of thing. And primarily speaking, these mushrooms they're adaptogens, so they give your body what you need, and these different modalities. Uh, we have capsules, we have tinctures, we have a drink, we have a bunch of different ways that we can get the mushrooms in you, and it's just about being consistent, about staying on top of it, because this is a whole entire food group which we do not have in our bodies anymore. And what it does for the body is just amazing on a neurological aspect, on a psychological aspect. It's been known to do a lot of different things, even on an antioxidant level. So it's just an amazing supplement to have into your body. And there's a big craze on mushrooms right now. A lot of information is being known about, being learned about what they can do. And the thing about that is the fact that it's only about 10% of the understanding of what mushrooms can do is known right now. So there's a lot more to be known once once I guess there's more, we go down this road more of functional mushroom. But it's definitely something that people should take a look into and take your health back into your own hands.
Now, I've heard a couple people just hear the word click. I used to be that where I used to hear mushrooms, think of Seth Rogen, and just tune out. I came from a culture where drinking was prevalent. Marijuana was for the dirtbag on the corner of the school bus who would miss school. And then obviously times are changing and people are understanding that you can be successful and be a cannabis consumer. And I'm learning that like guys that you would never, and that's the thing, it is probably going to piss you off. It's like you would never think they do mushrooms. It's like no, clean shaved, well spoken, but they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I just microdosed this morning. I go, what? I go, you microdosed? I go, I thought it was for people who live under a bridge or something. But um has it been hard fighting stereotypes?
That's been one of the biggest things with the mushroom business is just the education part of it, really getting people to understand that, there's the medicinal mushrooms, which are psychedelic, and then there's the functional mushrooms, which are nice, which are not psychedelic, but does have the same beneficial effects when it comes to neurological health, and when it comes to psychological health, and when it comes to just antioxidant health and all the things that the medicinal mushrooms are known for. These mushrooms are so powerful because what they do for our system is truly something that you're not going to get from any pharmaceutical pill, because of the way that it connects with the body. It allows the body to have neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, and allows the body to have neurological health that's really hard to get and starts to taper off as we get older, and the effects of being inundated with so many toxins and so many neurotoxin chemicals causes neuropathy on the body. So these mushrooms are really good at kind of building up the neural pathways and kind of clearing some things out so your body can function better. And it's one of the biggest things. It's probably like mushroom uses is gonna be where cannabis is now. Like it's going to
Oh
where
wow.
the realm of where cannabis is, and probably can surpass it because of the fact that it goes beyond just the pain management, where cannabis is really good with the pain management and helping people with the whole opiate crisis. But with mushrooms, it does something else as far as like the neurological health and the mental gains you get from it. When you go start to have the medicinal mushrooms and start to go down the path of just, because what the mushrooms does is and I'm talking about medicinal mushrooms, not the functional, but the medicinal mushrooms. They make you go inside. They make you go inside and start to have self reflection and gain perspective on aspects of your life, which may have you may not have been able to get perspective on before. And that's where it really starts to heal the body and heal the past trauma. And that's where mushrooms are really starting to to get their popularity, because people are starting to heal like lifelong trauma.
Have you
So
have you heard the I don't know which Bill Burr stand up it was, but he was talking about his first experience with mushrooms and he was like left alone in a room and he said he needed to again referencing your amazing poetry with the samurai in the garden, he needed to rip the root out and face it
yeah,
and rewire his mind with like trauma or stress. And it's like Bill Burr is this hardened Bostonian, but it's like if it works for him, maybe it's something that everybody can try at least once. It may
Yeah.
not be for everybody. I do
No.
like how Rogan has, he's always open to every idea, but I do
Yeah.
like how years ago he was clamoring for everybody to try marijuana, but he's since said that maybe it's not for everybody. And I like
Yeah.
that approach, but
Yeah. I feel the same way. I don't feel like, maybe it may not be for everybody, the modality, but I will tell you what is for everybody. Going inside is for everybody. How you do that is how you do that. Um, One of the main reasons why I'm an advocate for medicinal mushrooms is because in order to reach the level of the depth that you need to go inside in order to discover that thing about yourself that connects you to everything else, um, you need to either be a monk and understand that it's possible, or you need to be accidentally enlightened, which can be with a large amount of mushrooms or something of that nature, because when it comes down to it, there's a level of depth that you have to get to that just is just purely uncomfortable with your everyday waking mind. It's just purely uncomfortable, and it's something where you consciously will not allow yourself to go. You will not allow yourself to surrender enough to be able to go to the depth that you need to go to in order to be able to heal yourself from the trauma. So what the medicine does is it just kind of like, it's like a snowplow, and it just blasts through that feeling where there's no looking back, and you just blast through it. And once you blast through it, you realize that it was only you holding yourself back anyways. And then you start going deep into the level of understanding of what you is. Now that right there is when the penny truly drops, because when you go inside and you truly discover what's deep inside you, the ramifications are just, it's indescribable. It's unspeakable. It's the word God without even being able to put words to it. It's beyond that. And when you tap into that, you realize that existence in life is much more than we've ever been told.
do you believe that you could have uh been as successful as a mixed martial artist if you were consuming mushrooms when you won the title? Or did you have to be naive where you didn't go deep? Like, do you believe it could have coexisted and you could have been successful? Or uh,
Um,
have you thought about that?
I have. I feel like a part of me believes that I needed to be asleep
Great way to put it.
in my under to be asleep in my understanding of life, because on the other side of it, there's a level of pureness to it that I wish that I could have experienced it. And by that I mean this, like, on one side of it, I was blind to the true understanding of what I thought life was, right? But I operated in that understanding belief that I thought life was to the fullest extent, to the point where I achieved something great, right? But on the other side of that is that now that I had this understanding, the fuel and the mindset that I had that got me to there, I felt like maybe it would have been a little bit more inexhaustible fuel if I was mentally pulling from where I am right now. And by that, I mean this. Before, when I was competing, when I was still operating on the understanding of life that I thought I knew,
Right.
I would compete based on the trauma that I've stored up in my life. And I would use that trauma as fuel. But through life and through competition, I kind of healed myself. And I wasn't able to draw on that reservoir of pain anymore, because that reservoir of pain slowly but surely kind of dried up
Wow.
as I grew in life, as my understanding grew in life, as I worked through the traumas that hurt me in life. But then once I got on the other side of all of that, after I had, you know, my time away from the sport, after I had my time away from figuring out who I am, after I had my mental breakthroughs, I decided to compete again. But I competed from a different point of view. I competed from the point of view of just being grateful that I can do it. And it wasn't even about anything else, but it was just about me having the grace to compete, having the health to compete. And that was the maximum of my effort. I'm going to give my max effort. You know why? No other reason why than I can. I am blessed to, and it's required of me because I'm blessed. I'm blessed to let it come out. So I enjoyed it from a different point of view than I did from when I didn't when I was operating in a different mind space.
It's crazy, man. The last time we did anything on the record was pre UFC 235 with none other than Jon Bones Jones facing Anthony Smith, one of your coworkers.
Yeah,
I also want to talk with one of your coworkers about one of your coworkers, Bilal Muhammad. He's got a big opportunity on the horizon, and about how his religion, I believe, could be a secret weapon to everything. Um, but Jon Jones, fast forward 5 years, I've now that I've gotten older, I've see he seems confused, and everybody. I had this not an argument, but a discussion with somebody. I said, I believe fighting is keeping him tied down. And they said, no, no, fighting is keeping him alive. And I said, no, no, no. I believe that the fighting brings out that trauma or that rage, some type of fire, and that he can't truly find peace until he puts the gloves down in the octagon and walk away.
mm.
What is, and
That's deep. That's deep. That's deep.
it's
That's
scary
deep.
because he brings up God. Jon Jones brings up God a lot.
Yeah.
And then it's like 3 months earlier, we saw him in the news for different headlines. And it's like, I feel like two things are fighting at the same time.
Hmm.
And it's nothing we could see, if you catch what I'm saying. And
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely him working through his demons, and we all got those demons, and we fight them in different ways. And
right,
it seems that he's getting better fighting his demons, and it seems that one of the biggest things in helping him fight his demons was him accepting himself. And I feel like
what
the
do you mean? What do
more
you
we
mean?
see, well, he's always tried to have this persona where he wanted us to believe that he was more in line with the spiritual beliefs than his actions would dictate, right?
Right.
So he would always try to be on the God tip, but the truth of the matter
What
is
was
the
his
fact that
walkout song? God gave me style, right?
God gave me style. Yeah, so I mean he's definitely um he wants to walk that anointed God path and things like that, but his life and the things that he does is in contradiction to that. And now he's to the point where I feel like he knows that everyone knows who he truly is, in a sense where, not saying that he's a bad person, but John's gonna be John. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And
Right.
I feel like people have have a special place for, like, yeah, we love John. We know he's a great fighter, but sometimes he doesn't make the best decisions in life. And people are accepting him more than they've ever accepted him. I feel like the fight when he fought um, Cyril Gahn was true testament. That was the most I've ever seen Jon Jones get his flowers ever.
Hmm.
And people really came out. They had shirts with his mug face, his mug shot on it, and really
Ooh.
showing that they. But you know what though? They showing that they accept him. You know what I'm saying? Like when Bill Gates came out with Microsoft, they trying to compete with Apple, and they did a campaign called "I'm a PC," and on that campaign, they had a shirt of Bill Gates, which I wore when I fought Chuck Liddell, which was a mugshot of Bill Gates, which was meant to kind of make him look cool, make him look more relatable,
Was it a
making
real
him.
mugshot? He got in
It was a
trouble?
real mugshot. Yeah, he got arrested in Albuquerque.
Jeez. He
Yeah,
hanging out with
so
Jon Jones in Albuquerque? Oh my God.
telling you, Albuquerque's that spot. So I feel like with Jon Jones, I feel like now, he realizes that he can just be himself, and I feel he's more into himself now than ever. But now he's more of himself now than ever. But now, you know, time is cutting off. Time is almost the end. And how does he hang out? How does he say goodbye to a career when essentially this is such a huge part of his legacy and who he is? And what happens when that spotlight leaves him? What happens when his legacy fades? Even though he's arguably the greatest fighter to ever do it, but your legacy does fade. You know what I'm saying? The dust does get on gold, and when that happens, what is that going to truly reveal about his life, and what is that going to reveal about who he truly is, and why he kept having those things in his life? I only hope that the best for him. I only hope that things work out for him in the best way, and I hope that he's he's grown past those points and he stops being his own worst nightmare.
Do you think he loses before he retires?
I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't. I think that he's that guy, and I think that
Okay, hold on, hold on.
hey,
Let me react. Okay.
yeah,
You think if the UFC and PFL pull this off, Jon Jones, Francis Ngannou, T-Mobile,
oh man,
Dallas Stadium, MSG, somehow they pull it off. I'm always with the pipe dreaming, man. This
oh
is like
man,
this is like or UFC Africa. If that's the main event, like Rumble in the Jungle 2.0, 2025. Let's go. The last fight that we hand Francis and Jon Jones their flowers. Can Francis beat Jon Bones Jones?
um, I think he could.
I
I
agree.
think he could. I
Dude, we
think he
talk
could
about
beat
that
John Jones.
spirituality. I think Francis has a
Yeah,
lot working for him.
I think he could work. I think he could do it. And I say that because of the way that he fought Tyson Fury. And I know Jon Jones is such a well-rounded fighter, and has a wrestling, the ability to really dominate with his wrestling. But what Francis showed me in that fight with Tyson Fury is that no matter what your advantage or your perceived advantage can be, if he puts his mind to it, he could do it. He could do it. And to be, I mean, what he did with Tyson Fury is
I,
so astronomically
I don't think people
huge
still
that people
understand
really
what
they don't
happened.
they don't really understand how astronomically, unbelievably how huge that was for him to be able to do that with somebody as now here's the thing about it. Not only is he the champion now, but honestly speaking, looking at skill for skill, I would say technically speaking, he's one of the better heavyweights to ever do it. When you look at the
Ooh.
speed, when you look at the combinations, when you look at the footwork, when you look at everything that Tyson Fury brings to the table, I mean, he's a mix of a lot of different great boxers. He's got a jab like Larry Holmes. He's got movement like Muhammad Ali at
Yep.
times. He's got power like he can like Mike Tyson. He's a great combination of fighter and Tyson and
That
Francis
pivot. I don't
Ngannou.
know how he pivots so fast at 6'9".
Telling you, bro. Telling you. I'm telling you. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to put anything past Francis, man. I mean that performance.
Oh my! I'm so happy for Francis, man. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Combat sports has never. It probably before we were alive, it was killing it with the Ali era and the Frazier's and the Listons. I'm sure it was like the number one sport in the world. But I think, no offense to
Yeah,
soccer.
boxing made a big comeback there, and a
Yep.
huge part of that is due to the fact that you got these matchups being made in boxing that are fun, that brings people to watch, and a big part of that is Jake Paul.
I
Jake
can't believe
Paul.
you say it. Wow. Now I
I
respect him.
know,
I respect him. People think
I
I'm
know, I
nuts. I
know.
go. I
I know,
respect
but
it, but you're taking it to another level.
yeah, I am, and I'm gonna take it to the level. You know why? Because what he did is he made boxing take a look at itself. And when you see the kind of success that he came into the game with, and the market that he's able to hit, if you're a boxing promoter, you got to be paying attention to that. You got to see the numbers that he's hitting right out of the gate with the experience, with the level that he's at, and making millions and millions of dollars. And listen, not all his events were successful, not all of them were big sales, but it's the accumulation. It is what he's done with the brand. And because of that brand is built so strong, he has a bunch of different copycats. He has a bunch of different people, and he has boxing itself going out of its way to make matchups to do what? Gain the attention, gain the blockbuster headline. So now you're having more interesting battles happen in boxing because they're realizing if we don't do this, then we're done. We can argue amongst my promotion, your promotion, and keep our fighters away from each other. But then at the end of the day, we all lose. Let's win together. And that's when they start making more interesting fights happen in boxing.
Exactly. You brought up Jack Johnson earlier, and obviously the Great White Hope and the Jim Jeffries fight. I learned that Jim Jeffries retired and bowed out, obviously because of racism, didn't want to face the better man in Jack Johnson. But some Australian entrepreneur threw money at it to make the fight happen. I see that's what's going on with the Saudis right now. Like
Oh yeah.
that if they get involved, we already know they're involved with the PFL, but there's a funny meme where Dana White has like the chic outfit. If the money talks, Dana will learn every bit of the culture and religion to make that fight happen, whether it's Francis, Jon Jones, or some type of crossover fight. But money talks, as Mr. Andrei Arlovsky has said in his wonderful Russian accent. And
Yeah.
Rashad, we have been talking, and I appreciate the conversation. Mr. Sugar Rashad Evans, I think you definitely deserve the surname Mr. in front. You are a modern day samurai. I respect you on so many different levels. Rashad, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ike. I appreciate you, and you have yourself a good day. Speak to you soon.